People aren't refusing to work. They're refusing to work for dog shit wages, zero benefits, insane hours, and career dead-end jobs. They should refuse to work under those conditions, and business models and economies that depend on them should fail.
Business models and economies that depend on them should fail. I'm going to do something a bit different for this video. You guys know I'm typically pretty anti-capitalist. But for this video and this video alone, I'm going to be the most staunch pro-capitalist supporter ever. Because I want to see if this society can live up to its own capitalist principles it forces onto us. Spoiler alert, it can't. 1 in 5 Americans are depressed. 42% are obese. 45% report feeling burned out, emotionally drained, and used up because of their work. If you think this is all because the younger generation is soft, consider that for the first time in 2 decades, life expectancy in the US has actually gone down. People are literally being pushed to an earlier grave right now, despite the fact that medical technology has advanced significantly. What this all tells us is that this system, this society, is dependent on people being stressed, burned out, sick, and literally worked to death in order to keep functioning. This is not a society that deserves to keep running. This is a society that absolutely deserves to collapse and fail. 10 million men just gave up on working. They're not only not working, they're not even looking for work. Working is inherently a miserable task for the overwhelming majority of people. It causes all kinds of physical and mental health problems, which we just discussed. If you want me to subject myself to all that misery, you better give me a good incentive to do it. And I'm sorry, but $7 an hour isn't a good incentive. We're always told that society doesn't owe us anything, and that the world doesn't owe us anything. But if that's the case, then I don't owe the world a damn thing either, and that includes my labor. When I bring up this point, the common response I get is that someone has to work, or the system will collapse. This might not be true for much longer once AI develops and replaces the need for most jobs. But for now, let's ignore that variable and just focus on the here and now. The problem is, this line of thought is predicated on a very faulty assumption that the system deserves to keep running and not collapse in the first place. Nothing should be immune from collapse and failure. Whether or not you agree with capitalism, this is a very staunch viewpoint of pro-capitalist supporters. They want to get rid of social safety net programs because they believe if someone can't support themselves, they deserve to collapse and fail on a personal level. They also believe failure isn't a bad thing in and of itself. Boomer parents often kick out their children because they think once they taste the failure of poverty and despair, they'll learn the value of hard work and responsibility, which is an absolutely outdated horseshit philosophy in the modern day. But again, I'm not arguing against capitalism in this specific video. I'm merely trying to fairly apply capitalist principles to society and individuals alike. So by this exact same capitalist philosophy, this society deserves to collapse and fail as well. If your system is built upon the misery and suffering of millions of people, if people have to be miserable their whole lives to the point of dying early just to prop up your joke of a system, then maybe it's time your whole system collapses so you can learn from your mistakes and rebuild a different system that isn't so dependent on the pain and misery of millions of people to keep running. If we're going to live in a capitalist society where we let people go homeless and starve because they don't make enough money, we need to let businesses do the same. So often I hear this narrative of, oh, we can't raise wages because businesses won't be able to afford it, which is actually a total lie perpetrated by people who don't know how money works. But even if it were true, if a business can't pay you a decent living wage, then that business is a failure of a business that deserves to collapse. In the exact same way that you'd be considered a failure if you couldn't make a decent living wage to support yourself. These are all free market capitalist philosophies. But have you noticed how they suddenly get extremely socialist when it comes to bailing out the failed businesses of the rich? It's sneaky, isn't it? They want the biggest socialist safety net when it comes to their own businesses. They only want you to have to live under the brutality of capitalism. 10 million men have realized this, and as a result, they're refusing to work. Society is trying to hardcore shame them, But these guys are all absolute heroes. They're forcing you to put your money where your mouth is and live by your own capitalist philosophies you worship all day. So, if you want them to work and contribute again, it is your responsibility to provide them enough free market incentive to do so. You are not entitled to their labor and productivity. If you're curious for more information about how these 10 million men are surviving without working, check out this video right here.